I think the big misconception that a lot of people have about producers is they think producers are people who just find financing for their films.
I immediately fell in love with the story and the script.
We were looking for an arresting image that could be well represented in like a little icon on your TV.
There's something about bad sound that just reads as cheap.
This was a case of bend over and lose your filmic virginity, but you'll get a movie made and your name will be on it.
Anytime there's like that amount of money, there's going to be lawsuits.
There's nothing more important than the safety and the health of everyone who's working on a production.
It was like a passion project. They said, we want your movie. It was a bidding war. It was a major bidding war.
You can't buy that kind of publicity.
You're listening to Producerville, the only podcast that talks to independent producers so that you can become a better producer. On this episode, we're interviewing Jason Paul Collum, who wrote, produced, and directed October Moon, which is a sort of the first gay-themed thriller. He calls it Gaydal Attraction, which I thought was hilarious. That's not the title of it, but he referred to it as Gaydal Attraction, which I thought was amazing. But yeah, and there was a horror movie, all gay-themed horror movie called Hellbent that came out 9 days before October Moon. If that movie hadn't come out, October Moon really would have been the first sort of homoerotic, gay-focused thriller.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this interview. He gives some really interesting, but I thought brilliant advice on how to get investors for your project.
Oh yeah, that was good information. And also for everyone listening, this was a low budget movie. This was like, I think the entire budget was $13,000. And that was over a period of time. So, I mean, like, if you just have, like, a credit card and you just want to, like, take out a loan, you know, like, you could do that. But this is a low-budget movie. But still, it's money. And you need money to make a movie. So Jason goes into a little detail about how he
got them to, like, come to him.
Great tip. All right, everybody. Hope you're excited because this is another great interview on Producerville. This is Jason Paul Collum talking about October Moon.
I had really kind of tried getting it produced back in the 90s, and it had almost a different form. It was a little more supernatural, and nobody really seemed interested. They all thought it was a great idea, but the responses I kept getting was, yeah, great idea, but nobody wants to watch a gay horror movie. And I was like, yes, they do. There's nothing else out there. So the project kind of evolved over the next few years, and it became more of it's referred to more of a Gaydal Attraction, I guess. So I had been a fan, turned into a friend of actress named Brink Stevens, who's a scream queen. And she got me involved with David Dakota, who was infamous for his boys walking around in their underwear movies. And so I kind of tossed the idea at him. He didn't have much interest in producing it, but he turned me towards Charlie Band. And that's kind of where the story really begins. And Charlie Band with Full Moon Entertainment, it was my first kind of pitch session. And I learned how to pitch with him with some encouragement from Dave. Charlie, again, thought it was a great idea, but he repeated what I'd heard before, which was nobody wants to see this kind of a film. We wouldn't know how to market it. And
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you, Chris, considering the time that it was made, like it wouldn't be like that right now. Would you agree? Like, no. You know, a gay horror movie. Oh, great. Awesome. But this was 15 years ago?
This was, well, actually, this is the pitch meeting happened in 99.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Especially then.
Yeah. So really my intent was this in my mind, and still kind of is that this was the first gay themed horror film. And technically we were beaten to theaters by 9 days by that effing Hellbent movie. But this is an idea that had come 5 years prior. And so that was really my battle, because I was just trying to create something that nobody had done before. And right. Dakota was kind of creating the homoerotic movies, but they were not gay movies. They were movies made for women, is how those were being marketed. So trying to sell the gay angle was the problem. And it finally got turned out of frustration, turned towards J.R. Bookwalter, who is a super indie producer, and he made like The Dead Next Door, and he kind of promoted, what do you call it, like kind of counterculture product the regular distributors weren't carrying or producing. And he said, hey, if you can find somebody to produce this thing, I'd definitely be interested in getting behind it. So I made a movie with him called Something to Scream About, which was a documentary, and it did really well. And with the success of that, I was able to find an investor for October Moon. And I told them why I thought it was going to be a hit, which was the indie films that really kind of stick out are those that really have a theme that have never really been done before. So I really thought I genuinely had something unique.
How did you reach out to investors? Like I think, what was the budget? Like Wikipedia says it was 13,000. Does that sound right?
It was around there. So the initial money that I got was, I want to say it was 6,000 to start.
Okay.
And my idea was, we'll shoot this bad boy in less than a week, and I'll hire actors for $50 a day, which sounds horrible to people, but I had previously been making horror movies for paying them nothing.
Right.
You find kids out of college, and you find who want to be actors and who want to work on a movie, and that was kind of how it was done. And I still went that route with October Moon, but I was able to pay them something, and everybody was hungry to do it.
Right.
So the problem came in. The script was a little more detailed, and being my first full-length professional feature, where I actually had lights, and I had a professional camera, and I had a boom mic, and a slate and everything. It took longer than I'd anticipated in the production element once it was in front of the cameras. And I had a couple of cast members who still were a little rowdy, we'll say.
Okay.
And so it caused some delays during production. And that got us, we ended up having to shoot for like another 3 or 4 days, as I recall. And so I wound up paying for the remainder of it with my bartending job. So $6,000 for my initial producer, and then the other, we'll say $6 or $7,000, slowly came from one other person and then myself. Yeah, and I do something in production that most indie producers do not do, I believe, which is I give all of my cast and crew a portion of the profits. So because I know that they're working for super cheap, everybody owns like 2%. So it's not a lot, but it gives them a chance to kind of make a little bit more for all the blood, sweat, and tears that they're putting into it.
I have to be honest, I don't know of any other producer that does that. That's pretty cool. The person, you don't have to name their name, but the person that put in that $6,000, how did you approach them? Was they a stranger? Were they a friend? Was it your dad? Was it, a relative? How did that go so that producers who are thinking about making like a low budget horror movie like this could sort of have an idea about how to do that themselves?
This particular film, I approached somebody who I knew had money to spare. And I really sold them using the success of Something to Scream About. That, and the fact that I already had a producer or a distributor lined up. That was the selling point for them.
Okay.
So in subsequent movies, I asked people, I had a bartending job. So through my bartending job, I would kind of get to know people. And the bar that I worked at had slightly upper scale clientele. It wasn't like a snotty bar or anything, but it was slightly above blue collar. And so I knew that a lot of the people coming in were like lawyers and or store owners, people who had owned businesses. So over time, I would kind of get to know them. And rather than here's my trick. Rather than say, hey, you want to give me some money to make a movie, I would get the movie conversation going. And, oh, you make movies? Yeah, I make indie movies. Well, what kind of movies? I make horror movies. It wouldn't be all at once. This would be repeat customers. And then I would let them say, well, how do you find the money? Or how do you get that produced? And I would say, oh, well, I just find people who are willing to put up, like $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. I make them for super cheap, and they're easy to make their money back on. And so I would literally kind of let them come to me, because I wasn't asking for $50,000 or $100,000. I was asking for $2,000. And
Sure.
some people said, well, how much you make? Well, $2,000. How much do you make the whole movie for? And well, about between 10 to 15 grand. Oh, well, I'll give you 10. Okay, are you sure? Yeah.
That's pretty smooth. I gotta be honest, that's pretty smooth.
Yeah, so it helps to now have kind of people now know a little bit more who I am, and I have a resume for them, so they know that I'm not just some kid with a camcorder. So,
sure.
It does make it easier. So, but with October Moon in particular, it does go back to it. It was a solid 5-6 years that it took me just to find somebody to give me $6,000. So,
wow.
And again, I was in production on it before that stupid Hellbent beat me to the punch as far as getting out. But we technically were the first ones into production.
Yeah.
So,
can you talk a little bit about the casting process and hiring the crew?
So I started off basically with, as I was going along just in life, and over these 5 years of wanting to make the movie, I knew actors from college who I had worked with in my no-budget stuff. I was starting to get to meet Scream Queens. Again, Brink Stevens had kind of been my mentor when I moved out to Los Angeles. So I knew immediately that she was going to be my first go-to. And so I would have some sort of a name for the movie. And as I was writing the script, I had come to know Judith O'Dea, who was Barbara in Night of the Living Dead. Yes. And I was like, there is no way this chick is going to say yes to this, because I'm making this movie for $6,000. But we'll give it a shot, because I kind of started to think, well, we put these actors up on pedestals, but there's still people who need to pay their bills. So, the worst she can say is no. And so she jumped at it. And that's the main thing I've come to learn with all of these people. Like, how did you get Judith O'Dea? Well, because she was looking for a job. How did you get Debbie Rochon? Because she was looking for a job. Actors are looking to pay their bills. So you really can approach just about anybody. It's not to say they're going to say yes to it. If you are offering somebody who would normally make, $5,000 on a shoot, and you're offering them $500, that's not to say they're going to say yes. But the worst that somebody can say is no. So I just say go for it. And that's what I did. Wow. With the rest of the cast, it really was filled in mostly with people who I knew, minus the guy who wound up being kind of the lead, which was this Sean Michael Lambrecht. I was stuck with not having my lead character cast. The one guy I had wanted, whose name is Chris Harder, was unavailable. He was busy doing other stuff out in Portland. And so I was literally out at a bar one night, and I've used this trick since. And I was just talking to this guy who I knew. He was not an actor, but something about him just said, he's the character. Like, this is the guy I've been looking for. So I essentially tricked him into an audition. He had no idea that I was going to ask him to be in the movie. I just said, hey, I wrote this script. There's this character. I don't know if the dialogue is going to work. Would you read through some lines with me just to see if this works? And so he did, and he hit. There were like 4 or 5 notes that I wanted to see if he could pull off without me asking him to do. Okay. And he hit the lines right. And so I offered it to him that night. He took a day or two to decide, and suddenly he was my lead actor. So my casting process is a combination of people that I've wanted to work with, which is typically Scream Queens, people that I've known through college or through other film projects, or literally people that I just meet out in public who aren't even actors. In all the years I've been doing this, there's only one time, and I won't say what film it was on, but there was only one time where I was like, oh crap. Once the camera started rolling, I was like, uh-oh. But every other time that I've pulled that trick, it's worked.
Could you talk a little bit about location scouting? There's a lot of locations in the movie. Did you have to get permits? Did you try to avoid those?
Well, I come from the school of J.R. Bookwalter, Danny Draven, Full Moon, and we don't always necessarily ask to shoot in places. We sometimes just do it if it's outside and hope nobody comes and have the excuse of, oh, we're making a movie for school.
Right.
Now, I don't know if I can get away with that anymore because I'm clearly not in college anymore. But, you know, I really never had any problem with the public stuff. If there's a part, when I'm writing a script, I really honestly tend to have the location already in mind. So I will say, like, there's a bar, I know there are several bar scenes. I, you know, went to the owner and I said, hey, I'm writing this script. I'd really kind of like to be at your, can I use your location for like a day? And where I'm from, now I've moved back to Racine, Wisconsin, and here making a movie is like a big deal. You know, everybody's like, yeah, you want to make a movie in my place? Absolutely. So I don't have to worry about permits and licensing and giving people money to be at their location because they're just thrilled to death that I asked.
Yeah, that's the opposite in Los Angeles. It's like, no freaking way are you filming anything in my house. Yeah, it's the complete opposite here. Nobody does that. And actually, that actually did happen to me once where somebody did say yes, and it was like a one-night shoot, and we were there like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and left at 1 a.m. 3 o'clock, the guy was fine. By 1 a.m., he's like, get out of my house. Like, it was awful.
Yeah.
So,
you know, and that has happened too. We were, especially in October Moon, because, you know, I'd worked on enough David Dakota movies to kind of have an idea of how long it takes to shoot a movie or how long you would be at locations. But with October Moon, that really was my true, like, oh, okay, I thought this was going to take like an hour and a half, and now we're going on to hour number 5.
Yeah.
You know? And because again, I had a crew, and it wasn't just me and my camcorder like in my earlier stuff. This was like, oh, now we have to set up. Oh, where's my cinematographer? Oh, he's off talking to somebody and not getting the lights set. You know, it's so. There were 2 locations in October Moon where one was a bar and one was a person's home where they were still very pleasant, but you could see that the teeth were starting to clench.
Yeah.
Get out, you know.
Right.
So.
Okay, so there was some nudity in the movie, not a lot, but just a little bit. I think there's like a behind shot.
There's a butt shot, yeah.
So from a producing standpoint, when you have somebody that in the script, it clearly states that they will be naked. I'm assuming that was in the script, was it?
Yes and no. I honestly, I'd have to go back and look at the script. The actor offered. I honestly don't remember. The subject came up about how sexy, and I'm using air quotes for that, how sexy that scene was going to be. And the actor came. I want to say the actor came to me and said, you know, do you want me to take off my towel? I'm willing to show my butt, but I won't show the front. And I said, and I'm thinking to myself, I knew just from working with Brink and some of the other Scream Queens that taking off your clothes means extra money.
Right.
And I didn't really have that. So I didn't even mention it.
Okay.
And I was just like, I kind of recall being stunned that I think he had really offered to do it.
Okay.
To kind of sex up the scene. And so I want to say I was taken aback by it and but excited at the same time. Not that I was going to get to see his butt, but that he was, that I knew that was going to give us just a little bit of something in the movie that to get those gay boys all excited. While they were watching it. So, and it's a very nice butt. You know, yes, it's a very nice tush. So, so the actor was more than willing to do it. And, you know, I when I made the sequel, I did write nudity in, and it wasn't the actor who said no. The actor was gung-ho. This is a different actor. His sole purpose was to come in and give us some skin. And we got to the location, and the location said no. And they had originally told us yes. I was very upfront and said, hey, we're going to be showing some wiener here. And they were like, oh, yeah, no problem. And then when the day came, they had changed their minds. So, and I literally found out as we were setting the shot up, and the actor was standing there with just a towel around him. And I was like,
oh wow.
I was like, damn it. You have to go with it. You don't want to get kicked out, So
Yeah, it's a really touchy subject, and it's one that I think a lot of indie producers, they don't know how touchy it is. I had produced a documentary, and we were showing a film clip of the actress showing her breasts, and I actually had to negotiate with the agent for a payment per breast. And
Oh my God.
I was like, this is the most surreal thing that I think I've done in my producing world. But it's weird. I didn't expect you to say that the actor offered to do that. I don't think that's normal at all. Not normal, but like common at all. That you were in a very unique, that was a unique thing, I think. Yeah.
I think it's what so there's two sides to it. The first one is the actor was the actor who was not an actor. It was the lead who didn't really, I think he was just gung-ho to be in the movie.
Right.
Now, there's another actor I know, I have not worked with him yet, but who kind of promotes himself on showing skin. And so I think this other actor, I think it might be a case of I will show myself because I will then gain more fans. So I think that actor sees the business angle of it as it's an advantage for him. So I think the girls in particular that I know are more apt to ask for money than the guys. Because I think the guys don't have a problem with showing off their ass. Men walk around with their shirts off mowing the lawn, So I don't know how, unless I'm asking for a full frontal, which minus that one movie I've never done. I think showing off a butt isn't a big deal, but when you're asking like a woman to show off her breasts or her Netherlands, I think it's more of an issue. Unless, again, in my world of indie filmmaking, I think you get a lot of these they call themselves scream queens. I don't know that they necessarily are. They're kind of using that term very broadly. They are like the man I was just speaking of. I think they are more than willing to show off their bodies in the beginning to gain work and to gain fans, because that's more their goal. They want to get work, and if it becomes known that they're willing to disrobe, they know that the potential of getting more jobs in this field goes up. I mean, if you look at Linnea Quigley and Brink Stevens and Michelle Bauer, who are these scream queens from the 80s, for those who don't know, that is what they made their living doing. They survived by taking their clothes off on camera, and they knew that they could make extra money doing it. So you got one fee for being in the movie, and you got a bump in that if you disrobed.
That's why they're naked all the time. So,
yeah,
absolutely, yes. So I know this was 15 years ago, but what cameras did you use? Do you remember?
Oh God, I don't. To be quite honest, it was at the time, it looked better than a VHS camera, and it was something that was relatively new that had just come out. That all of the indie guys were starting to use. I remember we shot on 8mm tape, if I recall. They were really super tiny. Here, you know what? I got one right here. Let's see, what is this? I'm gonna say the tape we used was a mini DV.
Okay, I'm familiar with that.
So I'm. It's not my October Moon tape. It's for I made a film called Julia Wept, and I want to say that we shot it on mini DV, like this. And then there was some kind of a film look process put over it to give it more of a filmy look. So
yeah, I shot my first documentary on mini DV. I remember seeing stacks of them, because there's, they're great. I mean, they're still digital. The people don't know that they're still digital. They're just tapes.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, so thinking back, was there any particular producing challenge? I know you were the writer and the director and all that, but producer capacity. Was there anything that happened during the production that you didn't see coming, or that was a particularly difficult or challenging producer problem?
My biggest challenge was we didn't finish the movie in the first week. And I wound up having to, again, find extra money, some of which came from my partner, who I had just started dating. And then the rest had come from myself, credit cards, bartending. So it took another 9 months from the point that we filmed to the point that it was like done, because I had to grab extra scenes here and there. One of the actors really kind of screwed up on set, and as a result of it, offered to fly himself back because he didn't live here, and it was kind of his apology in holding some of the production up. So that would be the other production element that I ran into, which was we had a lot of actors, some of who were professional, some were actors, but really hadn't been doing it for very long. And so they saw it more as I don't want to say a frat party, but as a good time. And we had an affair on set that resulted in some chaos. And so as a result of those events, a lot of the production got held up. Literally, we lost an entire day out of our 6-day schedule. So, when you're trying to crank through 80 pages in 5 days, losing half a day or a full day is a bit of a nightmare. So that was probably my biggest challenge, was knowing that I was now going to have to pay people to come back. So now they're $50. So now I budgeted somebody to pay him $300 total. Well, now I'm paying him $600 total. But really, as far as leading up to the production, it was everything really fell into place. And then in post-production, a lot of stuff just fell into place. This was the first and possibly only movie where literally things kind of were handed to me. It was bizarre how easily things happened along the way, because I can't say that that's happened on every production since.
Was that stuff that happened during post, you said, when you were kind of putting the movie together, the editing process?
The editing process was there wasn't a lot of chaos with that. It was during the production that the chaos ensued. The post-production was just there was delay in editing. The music took longer than I thought it was going to. And then J.R. Bookwalter kind of came in and saved the day. And I got a new editor who cranked the whole thing out in a month and a half. Kind of took what was done, rearranged a bunch of stuff, gave it the new look, the film look. It was not, I keep calling it film look, which is more of a process from the 90s. There was something like film look put over it, but I can't remember what it was called. The only other stressor that I had was we were set to come out on the big screen, I want to say it was September 25th, and I still did not have the movie in my hands until that morning. Because so we had the premiere night all set up. Everybody had been invited. Guests were called, caterers were in place, and I didn't get the movie until I want to say 11 a.m. that day. It was FedEx to me overnight. Here's my swear word for the podcast. I was shitting my pants. So we weren't going to meet the deadline, and that was just because at the beginning of the editing process, it had dragged on way too long.
So did it get theatrical distribution?
Yes, very limited, very, very limited. It played more on college campuses than in your Marcus Theater. It didn't really get into Marcus Theaters, that kind of stuff. It was indie theaters and college campuses. That was its main exposure prior to DVD, which didn't happen until 4 or 5 months later. So. And
what was that process like of getting it the home video release, which is where it found most of its success?
So I already had the deal with Tempe Entertainment to go out on DVD. And so that really wasn't a struggle because, again, J.R. Bookwalter was so kind of taken with the concept that he kind of jumped at it. So that was the easier part for me. And because it was something so unique at the time, I actually got a lot of publicity on my own. So I never hired a publicist for it. I literally just put together a physical package, because you still put together physical packages. I don't know if they do that anymore. It all seems like everything now, you just like upload stuff digitally and you try and hope that some writer somewhere is going to pay attention to you. But I just put together a CD of all of the photos and, the main article, the press release, and I sent it off to magazines on my own, and just about everybody ran a story on it. We even got foreign magazines. It really kind of got a lot of attention. And I think part of it too was we were coming out at the same time as Brokeback Mountain. So that was getting a lot of attention in and of itself. So it was like the big gay year for film.
Yeah.
So you had this A-list gay movie, which hadn't really been, as I recall, Brokeback Mountain was the first major gay-themed film.
Yeah.
So I think that the publicity that we got was kind of a roll-off of Brokeback Mountain. So that process, so the DVD process and the marketing that went into it was not really that difficult for me. Tempe covered the cost of, like, they paid for the one sheets, and they had their people that they had their magazines and contacts, and they were a little more savvy on the internet end of it than I was. So they attacked all of the websites that were out there, and then I was responsible for the hard copy magazines.
Yeah.
And that was their like #1 selling DVD release, right?
Yes, from 06, 07, this little vampire girl movie that's kind of Let the Right One In. There was they had a movie called Dawn, which was the exact same movie, but years earlier. That movie took over 07, but then October Moon came back, and from 2008 to 2011 remained Tempe's #1 title.
Wow.
What was the word that you called it before? Like
gaydal attraction.
Yeah, it was a gaydal attraction, right? Which I loved about it. I mean, what I loved was that it wasn't some gay guy running around, with an axe, which was pretty much what Hellbent was. I mean, I remember going to the Hellbent premiere. I knew one of the producers that made that movie, and she told me it was all gay horror movie, and it was. But then when you watch the movie, you're kind of like, well, is the guy killing gays? Because like it was very ambiguous, and it rubbed me the wrong way, because I thought, you really don't know what's going on here. And then was this a step in the right direction for gay people? I think at the time, gay people were just looking for visibility. We were just looking for, to be represented and be presented like, regular people like everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And your story, while it's like a story of obsession and all of that, it does show just, people who just happen to be gay. Right. And so I like that you didn't do anything bad for the community, even though there's death and all that stuff and stalking and everything. It just felt like it was handled properly in a time when it was easy to sort of demonize gay people. There's a book called Monsters in the Closet. Have you heard of that book?
Oh, I have it on my shelf.
Yep. And like that book will tell you Hollywood has really demonized gay people in many, many, many ways. And so I think not only was your film inspired and original, it did something good. It showed gay people just as gay people. The fact that they were gay wasn't a motivating factor for the mayhem and the obsession and all that. They just happened to be gay people. So I applaud you for that. Right.
Thank you. And my goal was to not be gratuitous with it. And that's why one of the things that people came down on me for was that it wasn't gay enough. And if you know how many times I've heard that. And when I made part 2, it was the same thing. I tried to go with a quote unquote a larger distributor, which turned into a nightmare. But a lot of the distributors that I approached for the second film weren't interested because it wasn't gay enough. There wasn't enough sex. There wasn't enough skin. Where were the shots of penises? Where were the sweaty men, like rolling all over each other in bed or whatever else, and that wasn't my intent with this. And my part of my intent with October Moon as well was I didn't want it just to play to gay people. The purpose was for it to play both to gay and straight audiences.
Sure.
And nobody, it's funny when people say today, people don't talk like that. Like that never happens. And so many of my conversations in October Moon were based on conversations I had in person with other people. And they were the most, so when you hear these out of control, obnoxious conversations between the straight that the straight people are making, or the way that the gay people even speak to each other. Those are genuine conversations that I had with other people, you know. And there's one scene in the movie where the lead gay characters go to a straight bar, and there's a couple of straight girls there, and eventually they figure out that the two guys are gay, which both excites them even more. But then there's a line where one of the girls says to another character, a female character who's straight, who comes with the gay men. The bar girl says, "Oh my God, they're so fun. Where did you get them?" You know, like they're pets.
Right.
And that's a legitimate conversation that I and it hadn't just heard, I'd heard it multiple times, stated that way. So it was just kind of like, it was to the gay people, the poor gay guy in the movie who is being turned away by everybody that he loves, and his life is being turned upside down. It was a statement to how cruel both sides can be.
Wow.
You know, so and this self-loathing that we tend to have as gay men, especially when we're younger and we don't want to be that.
Yeah.
You know, so that was kind of why I steered away from the gratuitousness of the nudity and the sex and whatnot, because I wanted my mom to be able to watch it.
I love the thoughtfulness that you put into it. But it shows that you were serious about it and you wanted to handle the subject matter with integrity, and just, it was not necessarily doing the right thing, but it was more than just a gay movie. Like Queer as Folk did all of that salacious stuff, and you know, just go watch a Queer as Folk episode, and it's like you all the sweaty bodies and all that. But like, and Hellbent too. Hellbent was leaning towards like the eye candy and all of that. You know, the killer is all muscular and all that. But no, I would applaud you for saying, you know, you did pioneer. 9 days, screw that. 9 days doesn't mean anything. You did it first. And yeah, just fascinating film. Really, really thoughtful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's why it's lasted. I still get, but the fan letters have died down. But I still get, I'd say, like somebody contacts me maybe once every other month just to talk about the fact that they've come across it. And I've had so many people just let their hearts out to me that this was their story, or there was a guy from Texas who wrote me and said, I came out to my family because of this movie. And I also find that the people who reach out to me tend to be my age or older. So because I think your generations, I can see a split in gay kids versus people my age.
Yeah.
You know, that our experiences are very different. So this movie, I think, means more to a middle-aged to older age crowd nowadays. You know, I was 30 when I wrote the thing and filmed it, so I was still in the younger group then. But I think the gay experience has changed.
Yeah.
From what it was, you know. And after this one came out, and I'm not trying to like pat myself on the shoulder or anything here, but there was a bunch of gay horror films that started to come out after, and none of them really followed my design. They tended to follow more in the Hellbent design, and which was the gratuitous nudity and men dying naked in showers just for the sake of a man dying naked in a shower. There's a bunch of movies that are produced, I think they're called screamkings.com or something. And it literally is, I've only ever seen like one or two, and I think it's like, there's not much of a plot. It's basically pizza boy shows up and gets strangled. You know, delivery man shows up and gets stabbed. But they take their shirt off first.
Right.
You know? So I think that's why October Moon tends to has legs still, is because I think there's just something there that people can relate to, because I did pull a lot of it from my own personal coming out experience, or the fears of coming out. And I will tell you that I had not yet come out to my family when I made this movie. But I knew that I was forcing myself to do it, because once it came out, obviously my family would know about me. So this was also kind of my coming out story and life event.
So your family found out you were gay after they saw the movie?
No. I warned them ahead of time.
Oh, you were? Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So it was.
I had that wrong.
So while I was filming the movie, while it was in front of the cameras, my family knew I was making a movie, but they didn't know what the subject matter was. And then as we got closer to the film premiering, I had to sit my mom down and say, like, hey, FYI. And I had just come out with, I had met my partner who was now I've been with for 16 years. We were I had met him during this process as well. And he kind of just was the main reason that I was like, this is somebody that I love and I think is going to stick around. So I'm ready to share him with the other people that I love.
Wow.
So October Moon was like a big life shifting moment for me because a lot transpired in those 9 months.
Looking back, is there anything about making that film that you would have done differently?
I would have. There are a couple scenes that I would have trimmed. I'm really happy with the movie overall. I'm happy with the acting. I'm happy with really everything. We reach about the halfway to maybe we're 60 to 70% of the way into the movie, and I'm watching it now and I'm like, I probably should have cut that down a little bit. It seems a little repetitive. So just some editing choices, but nothing major at all. It kind of stands. I'm really happy with 95% of the movie. I can say to this day I can say that. I would like it to have been shot better, like on a higher quality camera, but I had discussed with Bookwalter many times. He wanted me to shoot with a tripod, and my cinematographer didn't have one. So the majority of the movie wound up being handheld, which Bookwalter hated, but I thought lent more of a documentary feel. It made it a little warmer, and I still stand by that. So because when I did the sequel, I made sure that it was on a tripod to shut Bookwalter up. And, and that movie to me seems colder.
Right.
Like it doesn't have. There's something about a handheld camera, if you have a cinematographer who knows what he's doing, that lends a certain truth to it.
We're covering only, one movie in a producer's catalog, but obviously this spawned a sequel. So I guess in general, like how do you use, I guess from a producing standpoint, how do you leverage the success of a movie into a sequel? Is it an easy process or is it the same process?
It was much easier, I will tell you, because October Moon was doing so well on paper. I'll mention this in just a moment. I got the money for part 2 without really even having to look for it. I had a producer, an investor, came to me, and again, it was initially he was offering up $10,000. He said, "If you make another movie," he had seen October Moon, and he said, "If you make another movie, whatever it is, I will put $10,000 into it." And I went, cha-ching. Well, on paper, October Moon made all of its money back the day it came out. So, which for a $13,000-$14,000 movie, it isn't necessarily saying a lot, but the movie was in the black like immediately. The problem that I later ran into was the company. Okay, so Tempe Entertainment was my distributor. They went out through another company called Ventura, and that company is who got you into Blockbuster and Best Buy and Fry's and Circuit City and all of those that were around at the time. So really, Ventura got all the money, and then Ventura went bankrupt. So all of that money that was made and owed to Tempe, most of that money never made it to Tempe. So I ended up getting screwed a lot with the first film, but technically it was a success right out of the gate. Right. So when it came to part 2, that hadn't happened yet. It had made all of its money back. We hadn't been paid, but in my mind, I'm like, well, why wouldn't I make a sequel to this thing if the first one just made a ton of money, I'm going to start filming right away. And Bookwalter even said, you might want to hold off until we get the money from Ventura. And I was like, nah, I got the money in my hand. Let's just make the sequel.
Right.
So I did, and then the crash and burn happened with the first film, with us not getting all of that money that we were owed.
Right.
So again, we did get some money, but not all of the money that we were owed. So I did find ease with getting the money for November Sun. And then that we'll have to do another podcast some other time, and that's a whole different story.
Right. I bet. If you were to make October Moon today, would you have done it the same way except with just an iPhone?
I don't think so. I mean, I still hire people out. So I am able to write, direct, and produce. I am not able to edit. I am not a good cinematographer at all. I've held a camcorder, and again, that was kind of my film school back in the 90s. I made, wonderful classics like Mark of the Devil 666 and Five Dark Souls, but they look like crap. And so I am not I can tell a cinematographer what I want and stand behind him as he does it, but I don't know personally how to do that.
Right.
So I think for me personally, I would still hire a crew with a professional camera and whatnot. Now, if I were a 20-year-old right now, then yeah, I'm sure I would just get my iPhone out and just make sure that I know how to light a scene. And I mean, kids today are running circles around me. When I made my very first movie, I literally edited from VCR to VCR. That was Mark of the Devil 6.
Yep. Oh, I can picture my friend Dave did that stuff. I can picture it in my head.
This was October Moon. Well, I keep forgetting that Something to Scream About came first. But those were the first two films where I hired people to do it for me. So that's the difference between making a movie just with my friends and what would have been a big box camcorder on my shoulder, or nowadays would be my friends with my iPhone. The programs that people are able to get today too are so much simpler and accessible. So filmmaking is completely different now than what it was even 15 years ago, because it's become democratized. Like, everybody can make a movie nowadays. Not to say that they're going to be good at it, but everybody can do it pretty much.
Well, it's like, it's a great thing and it's a bad thing at the same time. It's like, the great thing is everyone can make a movie. The bad thing is everyone can make a movie.
And I don't know, and maybe you guys can answer this for me. Has anybody made a hit movie using their iPhone?
They must have. I know that movies have been made with iPhones. There was a movie on Shudder called Host, which was all done on Zoom. So I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Host. You got to check it out. It's like an hour, and it's a horror movie. It all takes place on Zoom. It's a computer screen. That's it. Yeah. And it was actually really clever. Well done. It was very inspired. And I don't know if we want to see like hundreds of movies like that, but yeah, you can do very low budget on your iPhone and Zoom and all that stuff.
But isn't it interesting that through history, we'll say going back to the 50s and 60s up through now, the independent market, the guys like me, it's almost always horror. How often do you see a little tiny indie comedy?
That's very true.
It is almost, I would say, at least 80 to 90, I would say 80% at least are these little horror movies that people do with their friends.
Yeah.
So whether it's on 16 millimeter or on an iPhone or a camcorder or whatever.
Very true.
Yeah. So the thing that I want to say to people out there who are looking to produce their first film and they're hoping to go somewhere beyond their group of friends with it is you have to have make sure that you give characters, and I think you already kind of touched on this, but make sure that you have characters, not just Jenny who takes her clothes off and takes a bath. It's like, why is Jenny in your movie beyond a body count?
Right.
So give all of your characters a purpose. That was my main goal in producing October Moon, was why are these people here? So you've got to have a script with a purpose beyond a body count. Or unless you're making a gore movie and then where the gore is your star, because then you got to have really good special effects. I mean, you got to put some kind of money into it, whether it's $6,000 or $1,000. A lot of our special effects in October Moon literally came from the Halloween store. So I think I went to Kmart to the section where you put for the Halloween makeup and the fake scars and everything, and that's the stuff that we used. But you got to make sure that you're lighting it in a way that that is going to make it look relatively realistic and not shown for too long.
Yeah.
I think you have to put some kind of money into it, whether it's your own or somebody else's, and maybe try and do a little bit of research ahead of time on who you could go to with it to get it really to get a wider release on it beyond your group of friends.
Well, Jason, we can't thank you enough for being on the show to talk about October Moon. I love the film. I remember when it came out and the buzz around it, and so it's really great to revisit it all these years later and to hear the story behind it. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy that you asked me to do it.
I think my takeaway from this interview was that he had a story that had integrity. It was billed as like, the first gay thriller, the first gay horror, but it's not. It's a movie about obsession and stalking and all that, and the characters just happen to be gay. So you heard me say it in the interview, but I really pat him on the back for not exploiting gay people and just showing a bunch of, gay guys naked and whatever. That would have been obvious and uninspired, and
right.
I think it would have been just a bad thing. So I just wanted to point out to everybody that if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it, because you'll see a movie that really, for the first time, put gay people in the focus in horror and did it right.
It almost kind of helped in the long run that Hellbent came out right around the same time, because it really, you could see the contrast between the two films. I felt like if you were to watch them both back to back, it's very clear which one was just extremely exploitive and which one was not.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, everybody, thank you for listening to Producerville, and we will see you next week.